Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everyone coming today. I think it's a great day to really celebrate the leadership that North Carolina has in creating these advanced networks, both in the past, the present, and the future. And Oscar, thank you very much for laying out a very important future for networking, the software-defined networking. And Joe, thank you very much for really laying out the case for high bandwidth, low latency networking. When you take those things together, I am also a believer that this dramatically changes what can happen. And Oscar's given you a great example of what's going to happen within our networks. US Ignite is about what those same technologies can do to change each and every one of our lives. That's really what US Ignite is about. So I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about new technologies, which I can be very light on because Oscar's already done that. Thank you, Oscar. And the new applications, and I'm going to concentrate on the applications that can affect us. US Ignite is one of those public-private partnerships that Joe talked about. We were, as he said, kind of born out of the Office of Science and Technology in the White House, National Science Foundation, and we work together with a number of great companies. Extreme Networks is our newest industry partner. Thank you very much, Oscar, for being a new member of US Ignite. 26 communities across the country with advanced infrastructure. And as you can see from the outer circle, we're working to take some of the technologies that have been created by the National Science Foundation with the Genie project, working with industry and their labs and what they've been able to do. Ken Lambert, where are you? He's one of the great folks here at Extreme that I've been talking to try to get some great ideas on how industry can work together with this. Governments, research and education, foundations, and communities, because if it doesn't affect us, it doesn't have the effect that US Ignite would like to have. And we'd like to have that effect in the areas you see in orange there. So starting at the top, that light bulb represents clean energy. Going around to the right, advanced manufacturing, public safety, transportation, and a couple of real biggies, healthcare and education. And I think healthcare and education are really very important in many sections of the country, and especially in North Carolina. And I think one of the big roles that this new 2,600-mile network has in North Carolina is to really be able to deliver some of these education and healthcare benefits to North Carolina. We want to see that happen. We have a 5-year goal of creating 60 public benefit next generation network applications that you couldn't really easily run today. They depend on this next generation of technology. They depend on ultra-fast networks, on low latency, on software definitions, of being able to do things that we couldn't do today. And we'd like to see it not just in today's 26 advanced technology test beds, but in 200. One of our advanced technology test beds is here in Wilson, North Carolina. Will, are you here? Will, would you stand up just for a second? Will is with Greenlight in Wilson, North Carolina. They're a US Ignite member, and they have a fiber network in Wilson that's one of these 26 existing test beds to make things happen. Thank you very much, Will, for making that happen. And we're coordinating and incubating best practices across the country. And one of the best examples of best practices is right here in North Carolina, MCNC, its governance, its operation, its capabilities, characteristics, not to mention the wonderful companies that have the technology and technologists here. Our founding partners listed on this slide. Oscar, I still have to get Extreme Networks on here, but I have to get the graphics folks to go do this. This is not one of the slides I can edit myself. But you can see that we are represented throughout the country here. We have a lot of great members on the industry side and the community side. And we are really enjoying working with them. So we're really about apps from the future. We want things to happen that you couldn't do today. So it's my pleasure to go and give you a preview into how I see the software-defined networking that Oscar talked about and the high bandwidth, low latency networks that Joe talked about, how that's going to be able to help us in the future. So this is your home, wherever it is. It might be in an urban area, it might be in a rural area. wherever it is. By the way, I just need to go and for later in the talk know how many folks get great cell phone coverage at their home. How many don't? Okay, just checking. It looked like about 50-50 there. Okay. So into this home, you probably have, if you're here today, you probably have some ordinary internet service, right, of some kind. And you use this, and everything kind of flows over this one connection. The cool thing about software-defined networking is we can channelize this. We can go and make additional logical connections into the home over that same one big connection. Now, that connection has to be big. It has to be like a gigabit connection in order to be able to channelize it into other components. But one of these components that we're going to sell you is your ordinary internet connection. So I don't know what you buy today, 10 megabits per second, 20 megabits per second. So how many do you buy, Jeff? What do you buy at home?
It's actually about 5.
About 5? He has about 5 megabits per second that he buys into his home. And of course, he can do anything he wants with that. But that 5 megabits may or may not. You all use it for whatever you want it to, too. I know you do this. I'm going to suggest that we can also use that for telehealth video, and that probably requires more bandwidth. So maybe we can turn this on for just a period of time. Maybe we can also use this to have community safety Wi-Fi. I'll talk about that. Maybe interactive online education. I think that's going to be very important as we see education changing dramatically. And just in the state north of here, you know that we had some interesting things happen as the trustees and the leadership of a major public university were looking at what future education looks like. And we may have some medical devices in the home that are remotely controlled and need very high reliability. So these are the examples I just want to quickly talk to you about. So telehealth video. One of the things that software-defined networks do is allow you to have a separate path into the home that would be HIPAA compliant, if you speak that medical lingo, have privacy, and not be accessible to Russian hackers, because the Russian hackers simply can't get on to this separate flow which provides for this health video. And in what we think is kind of a remarkable breakthrough, it's been observed that before now you could either kind of get low quality Skype or high quality, high cost, you know, something like Cisco Telepresence, and there are others that are high quality, high cost. But how could you get high quality and low cost? It's been pretty much impossible. But it turns out that if you're willing to use that high bandwidth that Joe talked about, you can actually get both. The trade-off is you use more bandwidth, and then you need less compression. You get lower latency and lower cost. So imagine being able to have provisioned on demand for your 15-minute telehealth appointment. We turn on 500 megabits, 10 times what Jeff has to his home right now. We turn on 500 megabits for 15 minutes to provide for a low-cost, high-quality telehealth visit. It's a new business model. People don't know how to buy that. They don't know how to provision it. It would be something brand new. Second example is the community Wi-Fi. Most of you probably have wireless in your home as well. One of the interesting things you may not know is that that can be software defined into more than one channel, more than one SSID. Up here it says use MCNC. That same radio could be on a different channel that says Research Triangle Park. Now, maybe part of the licensing or the franchise agreement says that when you take up the service from a certain company, that you provide a public safety secondary SSID, a way of talking to your Wi-Fi that can be used for public safety purposes. Maybe even if you don't subscribe, if the carrier has a pipe into your home, even if you don't subscribe to the ordinary internet, you could still have a separate pipe that for public benefit purposes provides a public benefit Wi-Fi that can only be used for applications by first responders or other public safety officials. Not available to run Facebook. Facebook does not run on this channel. This is not a Facebook or a Twitter channel. This is a public safety channel. So we see here that somebody has taken their smartphone. There's a car accident. They're able to send this picture of the car accident to the public safety access point. via any of the homes that are nearby that have this community Wi-Fi enabled, and the public safety access point is able to dispatch the correct people and understand exactly what's going on. Interesting application, right? Couldn't do it today. Thoroughly possible if we have the software-defined networking. My next example is the interactive online education. If you were following the news yesterday, Andreessen Horowitz has just invested another $15 million in one of the 4 or 5 key education, new education companies. This one was called Udacity, is the one that received the new $15 million investment. And one of Udacity's characteristics is that you're not just watching videos of some lecture. Instead, you are interacting with quizzes, other people who got the same question wrong, worksheets, to try to make an interactive experience for online education. And I apologize for the graphics. I couldn't really come up with the right graphics to demonstrate that, but this was kind of the closest I could do. I wanted to emphasize it's interactive. It goes both directions, and you might need some higher quality, higher bandwidth, lower latency if you're going to be interacting with each other and having a real academic interaction. So here's another example that might be a different channel into the home. This is the green channel. And I hope you don't need this channel, but dialysis is much less expensive when it's performed in the home rather than in the hospital. And so to keep down healthcare costs, we're trying to do that. But some of the folks have very complex needs. Take a look at this instrument. This is an actual home dialysis instrument. You can see it's got lots of controls and buttons and lights and so forth. And you need to be trained before you can run this thing because of the degree of complexity that's demanded. How about if we have a very reliable connection that can be used to remotely control this medical machine in your home? It might require something more reliable than you could otherwise get. One of the things that software-defined networks can do is to take 2 independent paths, that's why you see the 2 lines on this particular example, and be able to send the information over both paths at the same time to guarantee at least one reaches you. So if one of those paths is over your spotty cell phone coverage, the other one might be over a landline, but between the 2 of them, you can get high reliability. So this is really the promise, I think, of software-defined networking for changing the lives of people in North Carolina and many other states. You will be able to have over the same physical infrastructure, a high bandwidth, low latency infrastructure into your home, such as you can get in Wilson, a number of channels. And these are only examples. I wasn't trying to say these are exactly the right channels. I'm just trying to give you an idea of some of the channels that we could use and some of the properties that we could create. We could have public safety properties. We could have privacy properties. We could have it provisioned on demand and taken down. Might be paid for by someone else. If you're watching a Netflix movie, maybe there's a Netflix channel that comes up for 2 hours and Netflix pays the additional 25 cents to the carrier as opposed to you having to buy a higher, bigger bandwidth channel. It might be that interactive online education requires a high quality, low cost, high bandwidth channel. And for dialysis control or other home medical instruments, very high reliability, be able to send information more than once. I want you to know that a number of these concepts have originated in North Carolina. When I go back and take a look at some of the earliest publications, Jeff Chase is going to talk to you later, has had not these necessarily application ideas, but the technology ideas behind this. So this is a North Carolina style technology that we at US Ignite would like to see applied much more widely. Thank you very, very much.